Sabah al-Khair, good morning dear listeners. You're listening to Radio 3CR on 855 AM and Palestine Remembered with Robert Martin, Nasser Mashni and Yousef Ahmed al-Rimawi.
Palestine Remembered is Australia's only English-language radio program that is totally dedicated to Palestine. We'd like to welcome those listening on 855 and those that will join us on podcast at 3cr.org.au.
Thanks for joining us. Stay with us and enjoy the episode.
Good morning, Robert.
Good morning, Yousef. Good morning, Michael. And good morning, listeners.
And Michael is our dear friend and a frequent commentator on the show. We're lucky to have Michael again. Michael Shaik is an Australian pro-Palestine voice and advocate, has been for nearly 2 decades now.
And an expert on many, many things, and we're going to be picking his brain again this morning.
Thanks for having me.
So, Robert, what do you have this episode?
So I thought we have the federal election coming up, which is a very convoluted process for many people that don't understand. And I thought we'd ask Michael how and who do we vote for to be kind to Palestine? Because it is not an easy thing. So, Michael, tell us in a layman's terms, because I'm a very simple person.
There's quite a bit of depressing news. I suppose the most depressing news was Melissa Park, a former MP from Western Australia who was also running in the federal election, being forced to pull out of the contest after an attack on her by the Australian Israel lobby.
And she's been a staunch supporter of Palestine for many years, hasn't she?
Well, she's lived in Palestine as an international lawyer working for the United Nations. So unlike a lot of her detractors who've only been to Palestine on Israeli-sponsored study tours and seen a highly curated view of what's going on, she's seen the day-to-day brutality of occupation. And she actually described being at a checkpoint and a woman being forced to swallow bleach, a pregnant woman being forced to swallow bleach by Israeli soldiers. And actually mentioning that at a pro-Palestine event was a bridge too far for the Israel lobby. And they hounded her, and they did the same thing they'd done with Jeremy Corbyn in the US and Ilhan Omar in the United States. And they said this was symptomatic of a deeper problem of anti-Semitism within the party. So she didn't want to distract. She didn't want Palestine to become a liability for the Labour Party, so she pulled out, which is kind of depressing because she didn't get any support from people like Bill Shorten or I think it's Chris Bowen or any of the top Labour people who are running a small target campaign on Palestine and a lot of other issues. But regarding how to vote for Palestine?
Before you move on the issue of conflating anti-Israel with anti-Semitism, deliberately making the two inseparable in a way by the pro-Israel lobby, whether in Australia, in Europe, here in America, this is an old strategy or tactic in trying to dismiss any level of criticism to the state of Israel and trying to intimidate basically Europeans or Australians or people who have this kind of complex of guilt towards what happened to the Jews in the 30s and before that and after that. So we know this is a tactic, but my question is, do we know from a Palestinian point of view, from the pro-Palestine voices, whether what happened with Ilhan Omar or Jeremy Corbyn, something that we can generalize and use here in Australia in terms of the advocacy voices? How do we support the receiving end of this intimidation, being us, the advocates?
I suppose all we can do is keep on doing what we're doing and try not to... If someone calls me an anti-Semite, I tried not to answer them, because how can you prove that you're not an anti-Semite. You see, like with Melissa Park, she can talk about the shooting of children in Gaza, the abuse that happens at checkpoints, the torture chambers that Palestinians have to go through. These are all well-documented facts, but how can you prove that you're not an anti-Semite? And by actually going down that road, you actually take the view off the concrete reality of occupation and apartheid, and then you have to look inside someone's soul and say, well, are they secretly anti-Semite? Do they know that they're anti-Semite? What is an anti-Semite? And you get into this kind of great big wilderness of mirrors that's impossible to get out of. So I think, what we've got to do is what Jeremy Corbyn and Ilhan Omar and all the rest have done. Don't feed the trolls. Focus on reality. Focus on the visceral reality of humiliation, torture, house demolitions and murder.
Stick to the topics.
Every day. I think so.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going into their field and you'll never get out of it. And the Palestinians will be lost from view.
Talking about leaders of the parties, tell us our leaders of the parties being, Bill Shorten, and what are their views on Palestine?
Look, Bill Shorten is no friend of Palestine, but Scott Morrison is an enemy of Palestine. And that is what I'll say the crucial difference is. Bill Shorten is very close to the Australian Israel lobby, especially, in Melbourne. And he's got a long association with them. And he will not do anything to help the Palestinians. Now, there's a lot of good people in the Labor Party who are going to push and have been pushing for the Palestinians.
For recognition?
Absolutely, for the recognition of Palestinian statehood. Now, he'll do everything to block that if he becomes Prime Minister, but he's not a dictator. You can't say the same for the Liberal Party. There might be some secret pro-Palestinians in the Liberal Party, but you won't get them speaking out for Palestine. And in particular, the Prime Minister, he is virulently, I'm not going to say pro-Israel, I'm going to say anti-Palestinian. That's part of his baggage.
It's actually ideologically supported when it comes to Scott Morrison.
I believe so.
There is an element of ideology.
Is this his religion?
I would like to hear from you, Michael, in my interview with you for the Arabic show, like we were talking before this interview. You mentioned his membership or affiliations with the Pentecostal Church. How does that... Thank you, Robert.
You're most welcome, Yousef.
How does that feed into his attitude towards Palestine/Israel?
They've got a very eccentric idea about Israel and about the Jews' place there and the necessity of supporting Israel as a fulfillment of prophecy. I always go back to the Wentworth by-election, and I think the media did a poor job in covering that. They said, it's all about getting the Jewish vote in Wentworth. And of course there are a lot of Jews in that area. Most of those who would favour moving the Israeli embassy to Jerusalem, however, would vote Liberal anyway. If it was all about the Jewish vote, he'd have dropped it the day that that the Liberals lost that seat on that night. Instead, he went on and on and on. And in November, he came out with Australia's new policy of recognising West Jerusalem as Israel's capital and opening up a trade and defence office there. Now, this wasn't to get the Jewish vote. You can't blame the Jewish vote for that. This was because of his very deeply held ideological convictions. And if you actually read his speech, when he made that announcement, he not only said that Australia is recognising reality and every state has a right to decide its capital and blah, 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 blah. He actually launched a vicious attack on the United Nations and called it anti-Semitic.
There we go.
Very predictably.
There you go.
And why is it anti-Semitic? Because it passes all these UN resolutions deploring the shooting of children in Gaza.
It's exactly what Nikki Haley and the Trump bandwagon has been saying.
Exactly. And, right now you've got to remember he doesn't have a mandate. The only reason he's Prime Minister is because of a coup against Malcolm Turnbull. If he does get a mandate, if he does get re-elected...
If he can say that, well, the Australian nation voted for me.
Then he'll be I'm not exaggerating. He'll be Australia's Donald Trump, and he'll be part of that right-wing coalition with Jair Bolsonaro, Viktor Orban, the leaders of Hungary and Italy and places like that.
It's a big call. That's a big call.
Look, all white nationalists worship Israel. That's the one thing they've all got in common. And, it's funny because the extreme right, like 80 years ago, used to hate Jews. Now they see them as holding the front line of Western civilization against the hordes of Islam. And, the one thing they've all got in common is they see Israel as the way their country once was, could be, and should be again. Because, all of these people, they love razor wire and walls and beating up on refugees and putting people in black holes where the media can't reach and things like that.
And this is what Israel has been doing successfully for at least 5 decades.
And it's not called apartheid there. It's called peace. It's called
security concerns.
Exactly. So all that language is being picked up now by the white nationalist leaders around the world. And that's why Netanyahu's such a rock star. When, he visits Australia, when he visits America, there's so many people who line up behind him. And, I'm sure that this year Brazil will move its embassy to Jerusalem. And I wouldn't, that hole is getting bigger, that breach in the dam's getting bigger and bigger. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if a Morrison government does it in the next 3 years. In fact, I'll be surprised if they don't, because already we're seeing a rush towards the exit. Yeah.
So just going back, sorry. So if I want to vote for a Palestinian-friendly area in Melbourne, or for the Australian federal election, who do we vote for?
I'd say the Greens are the best. Yeah,
But here comes the technical question. Voting for the Green might benefit the Liberals if they couldn't make it. This is the elephant in the room, and that's not my opinion. Voting, do you agree with that? That if I vote the Green, that's a good news for the Liberals because I will take away some votes from their traditional rival.
Well, in the lower house, you can vote Greens 1, Labour 2, and in the Senate, I'm sure the Greens won't give their preferences to the Liberal Party. They'll give it to the Labour next. So really? I would say generally vote Liberal last, though, because this is a very dangerous right-wing government.
So we can say that vote Liberal last, and then everything else is up to you. But we prefer the Greens.
I do. If you look at their policy platform, they were the ones who first said we will recognise Palestinian statehood.
Yes.
And there's a lot of good people in the Greens, especially in Victoria.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
So we have a situation where the two big names, Bill Shorten and Scott Morrison, one is not a friend of Palestine, the other is an enemy of Palestine. And we'll leave it up to you.
It's scary.
Yeah.
It's very scary. And Michael, thanks very much for that explanation. It's made it a lot easier for me to understand, that's for sure.
Thank you, Michael, for the in-depth. We like to use this word, Robert.
It was very in-depth.
In-depth, yes.
Absolutely.
So I have a Palestinian love story for you. Shadha Khalid is a Palestinian woman from a village in West Bank, was engaged to Hadi al-Hamshari in 2003, and a few months after their engagement, Hadi was imprisoned by Israel during the second Intifada. Hadi is a member of Al-Aqsa Brigades of Fatah Party, and he was taken to prison and he was given 16 years sentence to spend. And of course, back to Shadha. Shadha started receiving a monthly payment from the Palestinian Authority because the Palestinian Authority pays the families of prisoners a monthly salary. It's not a lot. It's around 1,500 shekels, which is in US dollars, $420. So she started saving her PA salary month after a month, until she managed to build a house. In the 16 years she waited her fiancé, She spent every dollar she saved to build a house. And when Hadi Al-Hamshari was freed last month, there was not only a big celebration, wedding celebration like Palestinians do in their wedding parties, but also he found his fiancée and his house waiting for him. So this is the type of Palestinian love stories that might go unnoticed, but are indicative of life in Palestine under occupation. What Palestinians go through that affects each and every aspect of their life. So this is a Palestinian love story I wanted to share with you and our listeners. So our Romeo and Juliet are Shada and Hadi.
Good to get stories like that too.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Heartwarming.
So I want to also take the opportunity to quickly talk about the Palestinian prisoners on the occasion of the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian prisoners, or the Prisoners' Day, the 17th of April. We didn't get to talk about it last week, and I apologize for having to put a repeat. Maybe we can quickly talk about the Palestinian prisoners. Apart from the figures, we are not prepared with figures. We're talking about the 52-year of occupation, and more than 800,000 Palestinians have been imprisoned since 1967 by Israel. And when you talk about this figure to a population of about, what's the population of West Bank? Around 2 million, 2.2 million.
Yeah.
So more than 1/3 of the West Bank population was imprisoned by Israel at a stage in their life.
Well, there's not a family that's untouched by it.
Never.
Whether it's a son or a daughter or a mother, they've all been touched by putting in prison.
Yes.
Quite often administrative prison, which is, they put them in there for no particular reason, and they can.
They also held dead bodies hostage. They imprison the dead bodies of Palestinians. And today, as we speak, there are 253 Palestinian dead bodies that were being withheld by Israel and being denied a burial. And
it's just bombastic. It's just unbelievable.
Think of the family who know that their son was killed or died in prison, but they didn't receive the dead body for proper burial.
It's just cruelty, isn't it? There's no security justification or anything else. It's just...
And moreover, not just because the military institution chooses to do that, the Israeli Knesset voted in favor of holding the dead bodies of Palestinians.
On what basis?
On the basis of that the demonstration that the burial or the funeral might turn into peace-threatening exercise by Palestinians.
Protest.
So at the moment, there are 15 Palestinians who have been kept, 15 dead bodies, only in the last 2 years after the voting of this. And this is one thing that didn't get as much coverage as it deserves, whether in English or in Arabic. I mean, the fact that you imprison them, you kill them, and then you deny them burial. How far can you go in your inhumane treatment?
There's nothing they won't do.
How far can you go?
Yeah, I once heard a talk about the occupation, not just of space in Palestine with the settlements and the roads and things like that. It's the occupation of time, controlling the Palestinians at checkpoints. You may be able to go to your job or your university or school or whatever when we decide. You may be able to bury your relative and have closure when we decide, if you're good. And it's all about making people wait, making them move to your schedule and things
control.
like that. And, the amount of hours, hundreds of hours every year that are just wasted at checkpoints and, in detention and things like that, waiting for a bypass road to let you through. And, it's, or a village to have its curfew lifted time after time. And people don't realize that how life is just kind of like being destroyed and wasted by waiting in administrative detention. 6 months, and after that 6 months, maybe we'll let you out, or maybe we'll just roll it over again.
And they will tell you on the last day of the 6 months that there will be another 6 months.
And your relatives who are waiting for you to come out.
Yes.
You know, your family wants to throw you a party and all that kind of stuff, but they don't know. They've got your bedroom ready and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's sometimes less the horror of shooting people dead in the Gaza Strip for protesting as a daily grind of forcing people to destroy their own houses.
Yes, they actually send you an invoice. They come and destroy your house and then send you an invoice.
Or if you can't afford it, they watch you actually do it yourself.
Yeah,
Oh,
you have
yes.
the option of destroying
Your
what
own
you've
house.
built. I mean, how heartbreaking is that, in Jerusalem? It's happening a lot right now because Trump's
This
given
is not
the green
a
light.
one-off story. This keeps happening. I would say every year there are at least 10 cases like
Yeah.
this in Jerusalem, particularly because Jerusalem, the Israeli project for Jerusalem, relies on enclaved settlements and relies on apartment by apartment as opposed to hilltops like in West Bank. So it keeps happening, and we also know that the Israeli occupation uses Palestinians as a laboratory for their machine industry and for their gun industry and for their even medical and pharmaceutical industry. And that's why when Israelis go to guns, whatever they call it, military fairs internationally, they sell the highest price. We did an interview a month ago with Yunus Arar. Yunus, you've been to his house, and he mentioned how long it takes him to go to Ramallah, to his work, on a daily basis.
From Beit Umar.
From Beit Umar, which is one of the villages near Hebron. In the time, occupying Palestinians' time and making a decision to waste it, to reduce the Palestinian productivity and to reduce the Palestinian efficiency and to basically block any future possibility for any normal situation for the Palestinian economy.
Well, in Beit Umar, they actually have a checkpoint that was closed for 2 years. So they couldn't actually get out of the village for 2 years. They could walk, but they couldn't use any vehicles because it was physically closed. And so sometimes he can get to Ramallah, and sometimes he can't. And it's a regular basis. I mean, the silly thing is, because they know who he is, because the soldiers go there for 3 months, thereabouts, they get to know who he is, but yet they still have to ask, show me your ID. Stand over here for a minute. Where are you going? Who are you going to see? It's just a game that they play. Horrible, horrible thing. It seems that Australia has blocked another Palestinian coming into Australia. So, Michael, we've had a few of those over the last year or so. Tell us about how that works and why they do it.
Well, often they just deny them a visa for no reason. That happened to Bassam Tamimi, I think, 2 or 3 years ago.
Yep.
Who's the father of Ahad Tamimi?
Ahad
by the
Tamimi,
way,
a great
yeah.
organizer in West Bank of
And also
totally non-violent.
non-violent Palestinian voice who just was invited by the Marxist conference 3 years ago. And nevertheless, Peter Dutton, our immigration minister back then, decided to revoke after giving him a visa.
Yeah, he already had the visa.
He actually had left West Bank
Yes.
to Jordan waiting for to come to Australia
Yep.
from Jordan, but then he was sent an email by our embassy in Jordan telling him that his visa is no longer valid.
So
that was
who's-
3 years ago.
So who's the latest one?
Remy Kanaze, he's a Palestinian-American poet and activist. He was also going to come over and speak at the Socialist Conference, and they just wouldn't process his visa, and so he didn't make it. And this is the kind of like silencing of Palestinian voices in Australia by this ultra-right-wing government. Because remember, they give visas to white nationalists to come over and speak on Q&A and things like
Yeah,
that.
they've had a few over the last year.
And,
Exactly.
and they would say this is freedom of speech.
Yeah, but
But when it comes to Palestinians, we don't get to the same treatment.
And these are not inciting racial hatred or anything like that. Even the Israelis wouldn't accuse them of that kind of thing. But because they're Palestinian and because this is I would say, a white nationalist government, they're shutting them down.
What does Remy do?
He's a poet and a writer, lives in America. Like Bassam Tamimi, he's never had any history of violence or illegal activity.
And he's a poet.
His sin
How
is
dangerous
to be
is that?
a Palestinian advocate.
This is threatening peace in Australia.
A poet and a
Poetry.
writer.
Yes.
Exactly.
That shows the blatantness of it. So
That goes back to my earlier point of why you need to vote Liberal last. This is an anti-Palestinian government. And, we'll see more of that if they get back in.
If they have the mandate.
Exactly.
that's a good night.
And I want to also touch on another element where they showed anti-Palestinian treatment, and this time from the Department of Immigration. As you might know, Michael, I have a bit of experience in applying for Palestinians who are fleeing conflict zones, and since 2013, the Liberal government did not approve a single application from a Palestinian fleeing Syria.
Not one single
Not even
one.
one single one. And they would say they will give you, they don't have to give you reasons or why they didn't do it. But the type of responses that we get when we speak about it with some of the officials or MPs from the Liberals is that we only are giving this to vulnerable minorities. And this is their language they use to say that we can only accept Christians from Syria.
Because Palestinians aren't a vulnerable
But that's what I'm
minority.
saying. But we are a minority.
Absolutely.
The Palestinians of Syria are a minority. And they are as vulnerable as the Christians of Syria, because there is some anti-Palestinian sentiment in some of the whether opposition or pro-Assad. But nevertheless, even though that we did the manual application of hundreds of these families since 2013, our success rate is 0.
Right. Look, I'll just say this. They're also very keen to give refugee visas to white South Africans. Now, why are they picking on Palestinians in particular? Because I would say, as a lot of people are recognizing today, they're fighting the front line of the struggle against white nationalism. Because, like I say, all white nationalist politicians around the world look to Netanyahu as their front man. Yeah. And the Palestinians, because they don't know how to quit, because even last year, after Trump recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital, they rose up in Gaza.
Yes.
And they walked towards a border, insisting on their right of return.
And on one day, more than 50 people were killed.
Exactly. And that's why they're hated by the far right, because no matter what happens to them, they keep bouncing back and insisting on their humanity. And that's why they're an inspiration to oppress people around the world.
And our determination will never be broken. That's all we have time for, Robert, this week.
It is again. Time goes very, very quickly, and we must say thank you to Michael. And I think we'll get Michael on a few more, a little bit more.
The door is open.
I look forward to it.
For the esteemed Michael Shaik.
Our esteemed resident guest.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Michael. Really an honor to speak to you. And I would like to say salam to Jean, your mother. I hope she's listening. I wish her a pleasant day.
Fantastic.
She's your number one fan.
I'm honored. Thank you. That's all we have time for. And remember to tune in next Saturday, same time, 9:30 in the morning.
Enjoy the weekend.
Until then, have a great time and salam.
Goodbye.
Bye.